Tucked away inside your nearest Sega Dreamcast, set up in the console's random access memory, there's a bar. A safe haven for guests and information to roam in, share a bit of their time, and go about their way. Welcome to Ram on the Rocks. Today I've got a really special guest here. This was actually his suggestion, and I am joined by my wonderful roommate, Nathan.
Hello.
Nathan, do you mind telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Nathan. Nothing really too crazy. I actually am a pretty avid RuneScape player. And I met Wayne through some mutual friends and then became roommates with him.
Yeah, and RuneScape is a game that, I haven't actually gotten a chance to really talk in depth about for a very long time. While I was not a super avid, RuneScape player myself, it is a game that I do have some experience with. And I do remember the old days fairly fondly. But I guess just sort of to kick things off, I guess if you could share just a little bit of your own history, what is RuneScape, I suppose, for the uninitiated, and what is your history with the game?
Yeah, so RuneScape started off with the Gower brothers, and it was more of a web-based RPG. Started as RuneScape Classic back in the late 1990s to the early 2000s. I started RuneScape 2, which is the second iteration of it. It was more of a 3D graphic one. And that started at about 2002 or so and continued on up until a certain era of the game. That finished around 2009 to 2010 or so, and then I took a hiatus break. And it wasn't until probably about 2016 that I got back into the game, but the game kind of re-released in 2013 with the 2007 Scape servers, which is what we call Oldschool Runescape is 2007 Scape.
So I'm not entirely sure how long ago it was that I really got into RuneScape. I was a kid. The funny story about that is I was not supposed to be on it. I was using my dad's laptop at the time, and I was supposed to be doing homework on it. Most of my schoolwork was done at that point on the computer, because I was actually homeschooled my entire education up until college. And so, right there in the living room or in the dining room rather, at the table was where all the work was done. And while I should have been working on schoolwork on the laptop, I was playing Minecraft and RuneScape and stuff. Actually, RuneScape would have come before that point.
Yeah, more than likely, depending on the time frame.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly when Minecraft started becoming more mainstream. I would say probably about 2010 to 2011 or so.
Yeah, I will definitely say me getting into Minecraft was a lot later than me playing RuneScape, and I suppose as it was a free game, it was fairly easy to just kind of sign up and create an account. That was I think the first online game I really had much experience with. And I want to say, what was my stupid username? Dancing 360. I don't know what in the world inspired that particular username back in the day, but that was the username for my RuneScape
Dancing
account.
360. Oh man. Okay, so back when I was so this is a little bit of backstory. I used to go off of a different nickname. When I was played baseball just for a brief period of time, rec league sports, just for fun when I was a kid. And people started calling me Nate Dogg because of that. And me, in my infinite wisdom, didn't know how to spell Nate, so I spelled it N-A-T. So I was always Nat Dog, but I didn't have an option for that when I first made my account, so I was Nat Dog 5. And that's the story of my original username. That is gone to existence. I believe in a 2012 or so, I think. I don't know exactly the dates for it, because this is all stuff back when I was not playing. But they kind of dropped a lot of accounts that were just inactive for years and years. They just deleted the accounts because they didn't need that bandwidth space anymore.
Oh, mine's probably long gone.
Yeah, unfortunately, it is. There's not much more you can do about it. But yeah, that was my OG username, and I kind of always want to look. I've always wanted to go back and like look back to see, okay, what was I actually doing? Because I knew I wasted a lot of time with like a capture the flag mini game. That's all I spent my time doing because that's all what everyone in this era like spent their time doing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what exactly it was that first tipped me off to RuneScape and made me want to try it. I think it was my friend Ethan was talking about it, and was talking about like, it's free, it's easy to get into and everything like that. And there was definitely something very exciting to me about it, partially just because it was like, the forbidden fruit element of like, ooh, I'm not supposed to be using this computer for this.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just like, again, as somebody who had not experienced MMOs before, like getting into this like little digital landscape, going on this adventure in a different world in a sort of cheesy way, I feel like that's the best way to describe the feeling.
Yeah, RuneScape is very much. To me as a kid, you didn't notice anything about it, but being an adult and seeing the themes that they go about it, you as the playable character, the PC, you are just happen to be the guy who is just here at the exact time to do the exact thing, and story-wise, it's a lot of funny story beats as a result of that.
Yeah, I actually feel like I remember there being a like fairly comedic like tone to the overall game. Which I find fitting considering the game has so well stuck to this very old school, low poly kind of look to it. I find the art style of RuneScape incredibly appealing in its simplicity. And it's something that I'm glad never got overtly updated. I would assume that there was at least an attempt at some point to try to update the art style.
Yeah, so depending on kind of where you're looking at it, so what I play is essentially RS2 or RuneScape 2, which came out in about 2002 or so. And that game, most of the graphics that you see are kind of like stuck in that era as far as like landscape and stuff. A lot of like NPCs or like creatures and stuff, they have updated those over time for a little bit of high poly counts and stuff, but it still relatively has that same kind of art style. And even the modern content that they are developing to this day still kind of retains some of that older concept of like, hey, we want this to be kind of low poly. Does it have that old school kind of feel to it, while still relatively being like kind of more modern in a sense, to where like the color palettes are a lot more, I don't know how to say it more, but it blends in a lot better and it looks a lot better overall. But it definitely has that old school style feel to it.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a lot of appeal to just what you can do with an incredibly simplistic art style. Like, things don't need to be super high depth or incredibly detailed or anything. It was memorable in its own right, and I think sticking to that personal identity has served the game well.
Yeah, to an extent. With the jump between RS2 and then the modern RS3 era, a little bit of road bumps and everything, that's where I kind of lost a good amount of player count, especially when I was losing interest in the game at that point too. Plus also getting into high school at the time too didn't really kind of play into that as well. And it switched more into kind of like 3D modeled graphics with like a lot more extra rigging involved with it. So it added more to the dev time, made the game look more modern, i.e. kind of like an older WoW.
Oh, sorry, buddy. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but it kind of sounded like you dropped in the call there for a second.
Hello?
Okay, I can hear you again. Sorry about that. We're in this. We are like a room apart from each other. There is a wall, and it's very funny. This is the most like technical difficulties I've dealt with an episode of this show so far.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's really funny. Anyway, you were saying like it kind of had like an aesthetic similar to old WoW.
Yeah, so it had like similar to like WoW with how like their characters, the rigging and everything, and kind of like the old school like classic WoW era of like graphics. That's what kind of RuneScape 3 stayed kind of progressing with into modern RuneScape 3 currently. It still looks decent. It still has that old school style feel to it. But it's definitely definitely more modern compared to what I'm currently playing, which is RuneScape, or Old School RuneScape, which is RuneScape 2.
Okay, yeah. I remember, I'm trying to like, it's really hard for me to think back this far, because it's like, it's not a game that I spent a ton of time on when I did play it. But I do remember like kind of the beats of like that opening area. I remember you start off in like a castle.
Yeah, so you start off in a small, I guess you can say castle. It's like a small village called Lumbridge. It's literally a bridge over the river there, which is the River Lumbridge. That's where the name came from. Yeah, first you start off in Tutorial Island, go through the beats of that, kind of just teaching you the controls of the game, and how this game is very different from a majority of your different MMOs, where like you use WASD or arrow keys to move. RuneScape is a glorified cookie clicker game where you point and click to where you need to go.
Okay, yeah, it's starting to come back. I remember.
Starting to.
I remember. Let's see, because I remember getting lost in that like first building there somehow. But again, it was like the first time I tried playing a game like that. And I remember there being some kind of quest early on. Somebody in there like trying to bake a cake, and I was supposed to like try to find ingredients for it.
Very much Cook's Assistant. It's the first quest that everybody does. He sends you on a little fetch quest just to go get a couple of ingredients that he needs to finish a cake for the Duke of Lumbridge. It's a very, very fun, very OG quest.
That's a great way of just kind of ushering the player into the concept of like the quests and like going off and like finding materials and stuff like that.
Exactly, and a lot of it keeps you kind of like within the area of Lumbridge, so like the greater farmland, because Lumbridge is kind of more of like a castle with a small village around it that the castle supports in some way. And yeah, you have to go get a bucket of milk, a pot of flour, and then an egg. And all you gotta do is just bring it back to him, and then the quest is complete. One of the easiest quests to do in the game, I would say, but it's definitely a very nostalgic aspect to it, I guess.
Yeah, I wish I could remember much more of what I did outside of that. I think I was telling you this morning around breakfast, it was like, I don't think I did a whole lot of like progressing in that game. A lot of my time was just kind of messing around and vibing in the environment. I remember there being a farm. I remember cows dying.
If there's anything in the game, it is a lot of massacring. No matter where you look, everything has been killed at least once, and everything's been killed everywhere. But there's no staining anywhere, so we're fine.
Yeah, there you go. Don't gotta break out the bleach just yet.
I don't know if bleach is even invented. Actually, it probably has been, knowing this game. There's a lot of like, later down the road, there's a lot of chemistry style games, or quests and stuff.
Well, I would assume that they'd be able to find something better than bleach. I'm actually thinking about it now. I don't think you're supposed to use bleach on blood. Not that we would know. Not that we would know.
Not that we would know, I guess.
Not that we would know in a way that's provable in the court of law.
But yeah, back to what I was saying too. Like, you're talking about like early game quests, kind of in this area. One of them is a sheep shear quest. It's pretty basic. You have to shear this guy's sheep, and then you take the wool, and then you go and spin it on a spinning wheel, and you get balls of wool. And this guy, his name is Fred the farmer, and he sends you on this quest. Now, there's actually a special dialogue option to where if you were actually to bring him the 20 balls of wool that he requests, before you even start the quest, he accuses you of shearing his sheep and kind of gets a little hostile with you, but your character just plays dumb about it, and then all's fine and dandy kind of thing.
Man, I feel like I'm having a part of my brain that's been locked up for years, like, coming back.
It's so nice to hear that too from like people that's like, oh, I used to play this back in the day. I'm like, I still play it. Yeah, I still have a great time with it, but I still play it.
Oh yeah, and that's like it's the sort of thing where you don't just play it once either, especially if you've been playing it that long term. You're gonna create new characters, you're gonna kind of go through the paces more than once. That's actually something I'm touching on a little bit with my review of Digimon World 4, which I just finished the script for earlier today. When this video goes up, I'm not entirely sure where I'll be in the production line for that video, but like that's a game that definitely gets a lot of its DNA from the MMO format. And a lot of it does kind of center around, hey, you're doing A, B, and C for this character, and we're kind of putting it together in a way where you're incentivized on paper to go and do this again, but under different parameters with a different build, that sort of thing.
Yeah, actually, that's a kind of a great segue into like talking about like the different character designs. I have 3 that I mostly play on. One being my main character, hence the lady that you see as my little image. That's just my main character. Nothing really crazy about that. I have 2 alternate accounts, or alts we call them. One essentially just makes me money. It does money making stuff that I can kind of do as like an AFK side monitor job. And all it does is just make something or collect something to sell for more money. Just kind of helps supply money to my main account, but also I can do a little side work on that account as well. And I actually have a hardcore Iron Man. So Iron Man, restrictions wise, it is solo. There's nothing about the game, like I'm not really supposed to interact with other players. I can't trade with anybody. I can't collect things that people have dropped off the ground. And it's kind of meant to be a more of a solo, do-it-myself kind of mentality. And that one is just doing little AFK stuff currently. It's not really doing anything crazy, but and the hardcore aspect of it is that it only has 1 life. If that character dies, it does get converted to a standard Iron Man account, but the goal is to try to see how far I can make it with this only 1 life that I have as that character.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. I like that. Yeah, that's like you might be able to shed some light on one particular quest. This was something that kind of felt like one of those fever dream things where I'm not even fully aware of like how much information I'm remembering accurately. But I remember there at one point being like, I was hanging out with somebody, because that was the fun part, right? Especially when you're first starting out and everything is like, you're meeting the more seasoned people and they're trying to show you the ropes and like how things work and stuff. Like there's it's always fun when you've got that one guy that's just super happy to find somebody that they can take under their wing and be like, oh, here, let me introduce you to this and this and this.
Yeah,
and I remember somebody being like, yo, you should come with me. We're gonna go do a little quest. And they took me out. It was like a ways out. I want to say it was in the middle of a forest or something. There's some kind of mansion. And he took me in there. And there's a vampire like coming out of a coffin, and that is where my memory of that begins and ends. I don't remember if it wiped us out or if it was just a friendly NPC or what.
No, so it definitely sounds like you encountered Count Draenor. So just west of Lumbridge is Draenor Village, and the theory behind that was actually a quest. The quest was a vampire slayer, and during that quest, the people of Draenor Village, which is just a small little fishing village just off to the side, and they are basically kind of being harassed in some way by this vampire who lives in the manor. And the haunted manor it is too, because once you go in the front door, you can't go back out. You have to find a different way out, or you can teleport yourself out of there. And yeah, he is, as far as early game questing goes in the free-to-play areas, it's a relatively moderate quest. I mean, if you're playing if you're a kid playing the game, it may be a little daunting, especially kind of early game, but like a mid-30s quest, which is kind of like your average 2-3 hours of grinding, and a skill gets you about 30 or so.
Okay.
It's not over daunting quest, but definitely as like a younger or like a newer player to it, it may be a little like I said, daunting or definitely scary at first. And it's just like, oh, but you also can't defeat him without a couple things. Obviously, he's a vampire, so you need garlic to weaken him, and then you have to hammer a stake through his chest. It never shows that in the game, though, but the theory's there.
Yeah, it's sort of like the unspoken thing, where it's just like the game's telling you that this is what's happening, and you just sort of buy it.
Yeah, like they send you off on that quest. They send you off to a pub, which is very, very common in this game. They send you to a pub to find somebody. And in the pub, you find Dr. Harlow, I think his name is, and he's one who tells you, oh yeah, you need garlic. Also, here, take this steak, and just grab a hammer from the general store on your way back. You just take him out for me. Thank you. I appreciate it. He just goes back to drinking again.
Oh, hell yeah, brother.
There's a lot of this game that revolves around people being drunk at taverns and pubs.
I mean, appropriate place to be talking about it then, huh?
Of course, yeah, from where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, I've always loved like a good like tavern aesthetic in a quest heavy game. This is deviating just a little bit, but I promise we'll get back on track.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Is one of my favorite games that did something like that was the first Dragon Quest game that I played, and that was Dragon Quest IX on the Nintendo DS. And that game was definitely formatted specifically around its multiplayer, and you were supposed to be able to get online and like play with other people and everything. And that was a big appeal of that. Create your own character, build them up, like get them jobs, and one of the first locations you end up in is this little pub, and there's a great little track from it called Pub Polka. And
oh my god,
it goes into my mind like every time we're at like Busch Gardens or something and we go into like Fest House and I just see that like giant festival kind of aesthetic and everything, like that's the first song that comes into my brain. Such a great little vibe, but it also really instilled in me just that appreciation for that aesthetic, especially for a quest giving area.
Yeah, if you want to talk about music and stuff too, well, let's see, how many tracks are we at currently? There are 809 current tracks available in the game, and every area, I guess you can say. So RuneScape in general, the entire map of Gielinor is split up into these chunks. Now chunks are kind of like essentially square by square bases, and each individual chunk has a music track attached to it. Depending kind of obviously where you're at. If you're going to like instanced areas or going underground, each of those also has chunks as well. So there's a lot of tracks and they kind of stack on top of each other sometimes.
Yeah.
But the fun thing to do, especially as an early game player, is to play with sound on and just walk around and explore and kind of take in the environment. Obviously going to be the favorites around here, Sea Shanty 2. If you are anywhere on the internet and you kind of understand or you know about Sea Shanty 2, yep, that is around Port Sarim, and it is definitely a banger of a track when you encounter it. It's probably like one of my favorite aspects of the game. As a person who's played this game for so long, though, I tend to not play with a lot of music on. I usually play with sound effects, but not the actual background music, because usually I'm listening to another podcast or like watching a YouTube video or something while I'm playing.
Oh, okay, yeah. That makes sense, especially if you've been playing it for as long as you have. That's like, you want to be able to kind of like intake something and just sort of playing it in the background while you got something else going on.
Exactly, yeah. Now there are like some areas of the game that's like, oh hey, this is like a new area, like especially when like new quests release. Like we just had a large expansion just come out probably about a couple weeks ago, and that's the time when I'll play with game sounds and music on, so I can kind of like take in everything going on around me.
I definitely do that sometimes when I'm like recording footage for a review. It's sort of the equivalent of like, you know, that meme where somebody's playing a game and then suddenly they just lean forward. It's like when you turn the music back on and you're paying attention and just locking in.
Yeah, things are getting a little bit more intense. You're on the edge of your seat kind of thing and just like focusing in on what's going on around you. Yeah.
I've honestly thought about trying to pick up RuneScape again. Like, there's some part of me, and I feel like right now is not the time. I have my Final Fantasy XIV account that I streamed on briefly and have been neglecting ever since, and that's a game that I've been wanting to get back to because I'm still in the Realm Reborn post-game. But I feel like it would be nice to try to get back into RuneScape, but As you were actually telling me just this morning, what kind of sparked the interest in this particular topic was there are some new things going on in the RuneScape realm right now.
Yeah, so RuneScape has, I guess, we have 2 summits a year, so that's essentially kind of like our E3 or our Nintendo Direct, state of play. It is kind of mostly just obviously all RuneScape themed. And during some of those summits that we have, they go over roadmaps, so where they see the game going, what we are expecting at certain times, what's currently in development, and then also what may be in development in the future kind of situation. And where we are right now, actually, is like I said, we just had a large expansion drop. So a huge continent that got started to be it got been working on for a while. It's a larger expansion, and it kind of gave us like a whole separate continent off of the mainland of Gillinor, I guess you can say. That content is Varlamore, and Varlamore, they released it into 3 separate parts. Now we just got the final part, and with the final part is like an ending to a quest line that basically kind of took you around the entire of the island continent that is. And overall, it really kind of hang on, train of thought's losing.
Oh, you're fine, brother.
Kind of overall what it was doing is that it kind of introduced a lot of new aspects to the game, but also kind of brought back some old stuff and kind of some old topics on the game. Oh man, I lost my train of thought completely there.
It's fine. Yeah, but you were saying that this roadmap was kind of pointing out something that was gonna kind of lead you to the end of an ongoing quest line.
Yeah. So the quest line is finished, but also with all of this, and they added a lot of extra content in there, and it's content not just for the in-game players or the people that have played for so long. It's also newer content for early to mid-level players, which is majority of kind of where some of the newer comers that are coming in from. So we're having a larger influx of people that have never played RuneScape before, but have been giving it a shot over the past year or so. And there's a lot of content that they've developed in there that is kind of catered towards that kind of group of people they're starting to learn how the game system works, how everything movement based is, how attacks are kind of choreographed in a way.
Yeah, and I mean that's an important aspect if you've got an ongoing game like that. It's a lot of us in the commentary realm, we say all the time is just the diehards aren't the ones that make or break any of these ongoing experiences. It's going to be the layman, it's going to be the people that are unfamiliar with it, your neighbor or your coworker, somebody that's not as into it, that doesn't obsess over it. How do you get them hooked? How do you get them interested?
It depends on the person, really. So it depends on what that person really enjoys. Me, I just like number going up.
Yeah.
I like the skilling aspect. I like seeing the little fireworks that shoot off from your character whenever you get a level up and stuff. That kind of stuff is cool. Seeing the number go up, doing activities or doing skilling methods in the game that are just highly optimized. That kind of optimization is what I kind of mostly enjoy. I'm not a big fan of huge rating, huge PVM, player versus monster bossing per se. I do kind of delve into some things of it, but most of what I like to do is kind of just chill. I work a full-time job, so when I come home, I'm more just to just kind of sit around, play, mess around a bit, do a little bit of bossing here and there, but most of it's hey, depends on the kind of person it is. So if you're the kind of person who hey, I just want to just sit around and just chat, there are places where you can do that. There are activities where there's a lot of active people that are chatting all the time, and it's just finding your niche kind of in the environment.
Yeah, and I like that aspect too. I don't want to keep taking it back to 14, but it's probably the game or the one MMO I've spent the most time on, so it's kind of my reference point.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's a game where it's just I can't for the life of me remember the name of that main city there, that main hub area. I remember I think the moment where I started really enjoying the game was when I was able to just run around there. I liked the feeling of the music. I adore the fact that that game has a mechanic where when you're just around a crowd of people, like there's a sort of like ambient chatter noise in the background mixed in. Really makes it feel lived in. Really makes it feel like you're in the middle of a bigger community. When you can just be in the world of a game and you're not doing much that's like gaining you any progress or is efficient towards like any you're not doing anything productive. You can just kind of be there and just hang out. Like, I think that that's the mark of a successful game, especially for an MMO where you're supposed to feel that sort of investment in the location itself.
Yeah, I never really delved a whole lot into Final Fantasy XIV. Played a little bit. Like I said, the movement in the game for like a Final Fantasy XIV is very like WASD or like arrow controls. It's not something I'm very much used to, and it definitely is like a bit of a learning curve. But at the end of the day, I do have like active subscriptions with RuneScape, so it's that sunk cost fallacy.
Right.
Playing in my head, it's like if I'm not playing the game, I'm not really optimizing what I'm spending for the game. And so it's always a bit of that going on behind the scenes too, that kind of like draws me into the game. It's that always like, oh, I'm paying for it, I might as well play it kind of situation.
Yeah,
but
I can't.
Yeah, the sunk cost fallacy, it hurts everybody.
I can't imagine continuously spending money on a monthly subscription for a game like that and just not getting anything out of it. That would be silly.
Anyway.
But I guess kind of my main point was that was another game where I think when they had like a really big expansion coming up, and they were really pushing the availability, like, you know, the meme, there's a free trial, yada yada, and that had already existed, but it was making its rounds in a new way around that time period, when they were really marketing like a big push for that. I don't remember what change came with the game around that time, but something very similar happened there that's happening to RuneScape now, and that was this migration period where you had a ton of World of Warcraft players that were all coming to Final Fantasy XIV. And it was like this big moment where it's just like you had this huge wave of new players getting involved with this out of nowhere. And my understanding is that RuneScape is kind of going through a similar thing right now. Yeah,
so currently kind of what's going on. This is just from a outsider. Never really played World of Warcraft. I always played like the little free like demo sections. Like you can play up to like level 20 for free, and I kind of enjoyed it as a RuneScape player. Hopping over to that was definitely a decent amount of fun. It was definitely a nice thing, like the updated graphics of that game comparatively. But kind of what we're seeing nowadays is we actually have a lot of like WoW streamers, some like content creators from that space. Over the past year or so have started kind of, I wouldn't say migrating 100% over, but a couple guys are like, hey, let me go ahead and give it a try. And from my understanding of it is that WoW being a very seasonal based game, how the gear that you spent couple months just grinding out for, doing raids constantly, just as you're reaching that power creep, that top power level, only for all of your accomplishments to be awash the next release, the next season that comes out, when they actually add another item that's a little bit more powerful, and you get this power creep kind of climbing up slowly, and just never felt like you did anything. Like, you know, like it was like, oh, okay, this item that I earned, okay, now it's useless because it's not the best in slot for the content that I do. And it's just that constant trying to keep you hooked in, trying to keep you constantly on the game, playing, grinding, and then, oh, new season's out, get back into it again. And so I think as a player of RuneScape, seeing it, it's like we don't really have anything like that. Most of kind of like what we play is, oh, there's in-game content, yeah, but our in-game content release schedule is extremely long. RuneScape got its first raid, I want to say in like 2017, and we didn't get a second one until, yeah, like there's no like rating. It was all like bosses, like you could do a singular boss, but there was never like any kind of like a raid where it was boss after boss after boss all in one section, and at the end of it was what we'd consider mega rare weapons. You're kind of like your in-game weapons in a sense.
That's making me wonder. There may not be a connection here. When did Destiny start popping off?
Destiny, I want to say 2013 was Destiny 1, I want to say.
2013? Was it that early on? I was in community college when that came out. I was talking with some friends the other night. I remember going
2014.
2014, okay. I remember going to Redbox to rent the 360 version of Destiny when it came out. I was so excited about that game.
God, I haven't thought of Destiny in a long time. I did play Destiny 1, the first one, for a little bit, I think when it first came out, because, oh, how cool is it? It's Activision and Bungie working together. It's Call of Duty and Halo. You know, what can be better than that? And then, it was okay.
A lot of things, actually.
I would say I enjoyed playing it for a little bit, but like I said, it was 11 years ago, and this is also me out of high school into college, you know, and, it looks good. It was fun for a bit, but not my bread and butter.
I was wondering if only because that was a game that really started incentivizing like the raiding, and that was a big part of it. Because I want to say around 2016, 2017 is when the Taken King came out, and that was where Destiny found its footing. And a lot of people will tell you that the thing that really made its mark from the Taken King was the raid. And I'm wondering if there may have been some correlation there, if that was when the folks over at RuneScape were just like, hey, we gotta catch up and we gotta start doing this.
Kinda, yeah, because it was 2013 is when Oldschool Runsescape released.
Okay. Yeah, and honestly, there may not be a correlation there. It could be I'm connecting two unrelated dots, but it just makes you think. Time frames are interesting with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, so I just kind of looked it up, just kind of get an idea too. The first of our raids, which is Chambers of Xeric, that released in January of 2017. So yeah, around the same era. So about 4 years or so after the game's release, that we got the first actual like raid of the game, which kind of made sense because Oldschool Runescape eventually, when it kind of restarted back up, was not designed to progress any further in its like internal story, and we can talk about that later. It was a one of the moderators, or the kind of like the J-mods we call them, happened to find a backup file from 2007 on a hard drive, and it was a hey community, would you guys like us to push a basically, hey, do you guys want us to re-release these servers again, you know, so you guys can play the old RuneScape. You know, this is when RuneScape 3 was in its like kind of like heyday, and maybe it was slowing down a little bit. Some guys probably weren't too happy with it. And essentially it was a, oh hey, like we can play the old school game again? Yeah, let's play that. And then it never really, after that, and it saw how high of a player base it was, because the game was lacking the microtransactions that kind of plagued what RuneScape 3 had to deal with. And so a lot of people were really kind of enjoying that aspect of it, and then it kind of just took off from there. So probably by the time 2013 rolled through, 2015, 2016, and then like, oh, by that point, a lot of people will have finished everything they could do in what was considered the 2007 era. And like maybe have like a couple little extra content drops here and there, but nothing big, nothing massive, and that's why they came out with a raid, and then the rest is history from there.
Yeah, I guess regardless of like why the raid started taking off, like it sounds like that was in an era where RuneScape was refinding its footing. It was kind of giving a new breath of life, so to speak.
Yeah, to some extent. Like, I'm not an expert in any of these topics either. This is just me as an outsider.
Sure.
Like I said too, I really didn't start playing again until like 2016, and even then it was like, oh hey, cool, it's back. Played for a few weeks and then kind of put it off. I would say it probably wasn't until like 2017 that I actually like really picked it up again and really started playing it again.
Yeah.
And it was that was a very nice time too, going back on it.
Yeah, and especially when you're like, it's got to feel nice. I guess, again, kind of going to Taken King. Taken King came out a couple of years post-launch from the original Destiny, and that was a little time had passed since that OG release, and Taken King was not the first expansion to have come out. I think you had also had the House of Wolves, and there was one other, and I can't quite remember the name of it. And they'd done raids before, like Vault of Glass was a big deal. I remember that. But Taken King was just like, hey, we lost a lot of players that started this at launch, and Taken King was just sort of like, okay, here's this brand new expansion. We're progressing the story in a big way. Here's these first other expansions that you get to run through. So here's all of this content that you get to experience. Even if you're just familiar with the baseline of like what this was, there's a bunch of new stuff for you to discover. And that was an exciting incentive. So I imagine kind of like coming back to old RuneScape after they had started to build on top of it a little bit, on top of also kind of bringing back a lot of the elements that made the old RuneScape so memorable. That's probably a really good way to make both newcomers and old heads happy.
Yeah, there's a saying kind of with like most of us RuneScape players is that we never actually stop playing the game. We just take long breaks, you know? It's very, very true because it's like, yeah, I played when I was a kid, you know, I played when I was in middle school, early high school, you know, and then I just took a break through my late adolescence and then into my teens and my 20s, and now I'm playing again. I've been playing probably for about 5-6 years again, and it's very nice just to come back to it. Overall, it's actually really enjoyable because it's like a lot of the content that I remember when I was a kid is still here. There's new stuff added on top of it, but is like, especially starting off fresh, brand new again, and kind of like reliving all the quests, reliving all of the experiences again was definitely like a really nice like nostalgia nod to myself.
Sure. Yeah, that's why it's just like, it feels nice to think that if I do take the chance to try to go back, like, it'll actually be fairly feasible to really like get myself back into RuneScape and actually give it another shot. Like, it's not as daunting to try to hop back into as some other games might be.
Yeah, the free-to-play mode is very, very beginner-friendly, and in a sense, you're very limited on the map, so you don't have to feel overwhelmed with so many places to go, but there's still a large portion of it there. The quest system is pretty simple. There's about 14 to 18-ish quests or so. They've added a few here and there. And all of it really culminates with the first like main, or the big quest that you actually knock out in the progression of your career if you were to continue on into pay to play. That's Dragon Slayer 1, and you're fighting off a dragon essentially. Elfarg is what it is. It's the name of the dragon, and yeah, it is a very much like it is a sweet ending to the game because it's like, hey, now you can wear like the best free-to-play armor, you can have the cool abilities and stuff, and you can travel a lot more overall with that game. And it's like, okay, it's a nice ending to free-to-play, and it's designed to kind of help transition you. So, okay, do you want to keep playing? You want more quests? Okay, well, we gotta start paying for it now.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like a, hey, if you want to, you can sit and just be free to play forever. You can just grind out skills and free to play to the max level of 99, and you can just keep on going. You can just sit there and do nothing and just be free to play. And there's some people that do that. Some people that enjoy doing that. I don't know who they are, but there are people.
Well, I guess like you were saying before, like even sometimes just the numbers game can be satisfying in and of itself.
Yeah, I mean, obviously XP rates for some of your free-to-play methods are nowhere in comparison to some of your pay-to-play methods.
Right. I guess One thing I was wondering about, just for like long-term players, especially people that are paying for it. One thing that I especially like to look at when it comes to MMOs and stuff like that is the world building. It usually benefits from seasonal events and that sort of thing. Not necessarily like a raid structure or a quest, although it could be connected to that, but just be like, oh, hey, around Christmas time, we have like this thing that happens in the game, and everybody just kind of comes together and enjoys Christmas.
Yeah, okay, so when you said seasonal events, there's something else that came to mind which we can talk on like a little bit later. It's definitely a really cool aspect of the game. But yeah, so there are several different holiday events that do occur throughout the year. One being obviously New Year's. We have like a little New Year's thing, nothing too crazy there. RuneScape's birthday, which happens, I believe, in February, when it was basically OSRS kind of came back. There's a little bit of Easter. Used to have a Pride event, though they actually didn't do it this year for some political reasons. Don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
Then after that, we have a Christmas event and a Halloween event. Halloween and then Christmas, obviously. And those events are kind of like fun. They're usually nothing too crazy with it. A little bit of a story, you know, they send you like on like a little small little quest or something, and then you're helping out whatever character it is that is the quest themed around, like, you know, like the Easter Bunny. Let's see, last year for Halloween was kind of nice. It was like kind of like a pumpkin themed one, and you had to like modify this large field with all these pumpkins to create an image of this the farmer's deceased cat. You know, it's kind of just like a fun little nod to death and stuff. And yeah, it was actually, I actually really did enjoy that one. It was one of my favorites they've had in a long time. But yeah, they do a lot of like seasonal when it comes to like holidays and stuff.
Yeah, that was something that, like, I do remember that about Destiny, because Destiny had an event like that around Halloween. I forget what they called it. It was a really good name that they had for it. It was like Festival of the Lost or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was, I remember, it's like you build a deeper connection to a location, especially like a hub area in a game, when once a year around this time something changes where everybody just kind of acknowledges this one event together, even though it happens every single year. It's such a simple thing, but it can go a long way.
Yeah, we have, like I said, I'm pretty sure most of the events kind of like they take place like in random areas. There are like a couple different like you said hub areas of the game, but most of everyone's kind of like mostly spread around. Yeah, because they're like different like dungeons and stuff people are usually hanging around in, but most of like, okay, our main trading center, which is the Grand Exchange in Oldschool Runescape, is in one of the main cities. Actually, it's in a free-to-play city. And that's where a lot of people kind of spend a lot of time. If you go do anything in the game, most of the time when you're teleporting back to go bank or anything, most of the time people are teleporting to the Grand Exchange, because it's actually a pretty close teleport to a bank as far as how many steps or tiles it is in between. But yeah, not really much like a city center, I would say.
Okay. And there doesn't ever have to be like just the one either. Like you can have things kind of spread out. Again, 14 certainly does that, where there's like multiple different main areas to be around in. And I guess in a game that's been around for as long as RuneScape has been, you need to have more than just the one hangout spot.
Yeah, there are a couple. Like it depends on like kind of where you're at. You'll usually find like culminations of players in different areas. Like currently in the game, I'm at actually one of the raids right now, just because there's an event happening.
Oh, nice.
Well, what RuneScape does very well is they have these things called distractions and diversions. And so, hey, you may be focusing and zeroing in on some content, like you're at an in-game raid or whatever. And hey, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm mining a shooting star or a fallen star. So hey, at this bank, at the raid, there happens to be a a star that fell from the sky, and then it has stardust, and you mine it, and you can get items with that. I mean, it's just like a kind of like an AFK activity, but it's also designed like, oh hey, I'm over here. Oh hey, cool, look, a star fell from the sky. Let me go ahead and just mine it.
Yeah.
It's a distraction, a diversion from the content that you were doing to kind of like take a mental break away from it, so that way you can do something else for a minute, and then you can get back to the content with kind of like a refreshed mind, you know. And RuneScape does a very good job of doing that and kind of getting you away from like the main content if you feel like you need to take a mental break, and then you can come right back to it again.
Well, even like, even just that in concept, like that's such a good idea, something like a falling star that you can go mine materials from, something that can just sort of happen at random, I would assume.
Oh yeah, every hour and 30 minutes per world, and it's random where it falls in the world. There are ways you can like scout it too, but it's also they're all spread around. There's like obviously certain spawn points they call it, but it's actually really funny too, because you can stand underneath of it as it's falling, and you can see the little black circle starting to get bigger and bigger on the screen. And your character, obviously nothing happens to the character at all, but it's definitely kind of funny watching it. And then all of a sudden your character just shuffles out of the way before it falls.
It's just that Willem Dafoe meme of him just looking up. It's him looking up, but he's got like little dollar signs in his eyes. But
they're not that rich. It's not that much money in these stars, honestly.
Nah.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, but it's for the skill you use, which is a mining skill. Obviously, it is a very good like AFK method where it's like you can click, walk away for about 7 minutes, come back, click again, walk away for 7 minutes. It's very nice for something like that.
Well, I guess the one thing I'm kind of curious about, because it's something that I didn't get to delve into much when I was playing the game, and it's something I haven't kept up with or really heard much about. Like, what would you say would be the main crux of the adventure? Like, obviously, something like an MMO is going to rely heavily on the longevity. It's going to rely on not just one plot point, but what's going to keep you there long term. But is there, in your opinion, like a main story or goal of the RuneScape narrative?
Yes and no. There's several different storylines, and kind of how I explained it before was like you are kind of just this person who just so happens to be here at the right time, the right moment. Obviously for the quest storyline, doesn't matter. It's just how it's being interacted with in game. Hang on.
Mm-hmm.
Question again?
Oh, like, what would you say is the main goal of, like, the experience? Like, what would you say is the thing you do before you're officially in post-game?
It really depends based on the player, because like I said, there's some players who are very much into like doing just skilling activities and not really much into PVM stuff.
Yeah.
I would definitely say it's like, hey, if you've experienced the game to where like, hey, I have completed all the quests that are available. Most of it is just kind of just like in-game grinding for some people. Like me, you just grind out skills to the maximum level 99. Each one that you do grind out, you get a cool little skill cape that has a little cool emote attached to it. And I think overall the game is just completionist. Okay. There's a lot of things to do that are completionist based. Like we have, if you are more into like the PVM side of things, you have combat tasks where it's like, hey, you can fight monsters or fight bosses in very specific ways with like heavy restrictions, or you're doing speed tasks where you're trying to do it as fast as possible. And overall, there's just a lot of like completionist mentality with it, and I think that's what really draws a lot of players to it, me included. It's just like, oh, I can do this and just complete this. That's another thing checked off the list. That's another thing checked off the list. And it's kind of like a showboaty kind of thing where you can show off what you have achieved in the game.
Yeah.
But as far as like in-game content, anything like you're getting into like your raids, you're getting into your highest scale like PVM stuff. That all comes kind of like depending on where you're at, depending on what you're focusing on. So there's some people that just beeline straight for kind of in-game content like that, where they get skills up high enough. A lot of those players, or if you see them, a lot of them are supported by like main accounts that have a lot of money, and they can kind of help them just progress faster through the ranks and essentially get their skills higher and higher, supply them with like best in slot gear for their levels and stuff. That happens a lot too. And then it's like, hey, if that's what you want to do, you want to be an in-game player, you want to be a player that wants to do the highest level content possible, there's a lot of options for you.
Okay, yeah. That's one of the things I just sort of get the vibe from, just by the way you're describing it, is there's a lot of okay, so like for World of Warcraft, you have this central conflict of like the Alliance versus the Horde. Within Final Fantasy XIV, it's you're at least at the beginning, it's just like, hey, we got to keep people from summoning gods that are gonna destroy the planet again. Whereas with RuneScape, there seems to be a sort of refreshing simplicity that's just kind of letting the goal be, hey, just live in the world and make your own life within it. Like there doesn't have to be like a giant complicated like storyline to follow or anything like that. It can just be, hey, this is where we are, this is the game world, and this is the little place that I found in it.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I mean, there's no like huge cataclysmic event that changes everything in the game.
Yeah.
You know, there are different things that do happen, and then like obviously like different character models, like in-game NPC models, do get changed as an aspect of that. Characters die and stuff like that. But yeah, like overall the game just is existing, you know. Obviously when there's new content that drops, we're like, oh hey, yeah, now like this area looks a little bit different because it's a result of like whatever conflict is going on. But everyone just vibes around and just does their thing, you know. It's kind of like a keep calm, carry on sort of deal.
Yeah. And that's sometimes that's all you need, and I think that shows a certain level of confidence as well, where it's just like you don't have to apologize for the game's existence, and the gameplay experience can just sort of speak for itself. I think that could be seen as a mark of quality.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just like, hey, you can sit here, do like I said, do whatever you'd like to do. But if you want to continue on with the quest, you're more than welcome to. It definitely adds to enriching kind of like the overall story of the game and kind of like how you view it. And overall, like quest dialogue, the options that you choose really don't make too much of a difference. You don't get a good or a bad outcome. It's just the same outcome because the storylines are kind of just very singular, very straight. But it is very refreshing.
Yeah, I guess kind of speaking to the quality of the content that is there that you can just go choose to do, you did speak a little bit on the seasonal quests and noted that there was something along those lines.
Yeah, so RuneScape has, occasionally they'll do these, they have different like game modes that you can play. One of which is just like kind of like one of my favorites is what we call leagues. Leagues is like a very much very seasonal. It usually will go on for about 6 weeks or so, and what it is that you can get on a special leagues centric world, and everyone starts from scratch again. But instead of having your normal XP modifiers, they are increased like tenfold, to a point to where like the more you progress in that, the more experience you can get, and then you are also overpowered with different kinds of like relics or what we have. And like one of them is like anything, what is it? Like you can bank anywhere. You can have a bank wherever you are. You can just access your bank. Another one is like you can, there's like teleports all around the world that you can use. And it's just like you have one item that can do 5 different items worth of teleports. And it's just like an OP way of like how far can you go in the game to in-game content, and also you are incredibly overpowered compared to the normal game.
Yeah.
And it is a very much and it's all skill based too. And it's like you have to know, okay, you're also locked to different regions of the game too.
With this,
so you have to have like knowledge of like the areas you're going into, knowing what I can achieve, and also during the same time you're also an Iron Man, like I was explaining earlier. You're basically solo. You're by yourself.
Yeah. Man, with that level of power, nobody would be prepared for the amount of cows I would slaughter.
They're probably, so there's a bunch of like tasks and stuff that you can do for that, and then that's probably one of them is kill a cow. It's probably one of your beginner tasks, but it's probably one of like the first ones you knock out, because it's the more you do there, the more it progresses on. And kind of similar to Leagues is that we actually have a PvP version similar to it. It's called Deadman mode, and it's actually kind of like our esports side of RuneScape.
Oh, okay.
To where they actually do have like 1v1 tournaments with it, with like cash prizes and stuff. And for the past couple of years, it's been kind of more touted as like kind of how RuneScape esports can be like set up in some way. I'm not a PvP player by any means at all. I'm not very good at it, and it's not my bread and butter because I don't like losing my stuff.
Oh, sure.
But I do enjoy watching like PvP related content, and man, those guys are fast and they are very good at what they do.
I love seeing masters at work. It's I imagine like part of the reason why our entire household loves watching Games on Quick every year. It's just like, it's fun to see people tackle games in a way that, hey, maybe we're not really interested in playing the game quite that way, but it's still fun to see them like show a level of mastery to it that took a lot of time and effort to get down.
Exactly. Like with RuneScape, which is different from most of your MMOs, like your Final Fantasy and your World of Warcraft, is that you aren't locked to a particular attack style. So RuneScape is broken down into mostly three. We have melee, you have magic, and you have ranged. And it works as a game of like rock, paper, and scissors. You know, one is strong against the other, but that one is also weak against the other one. Mm-hmm. And so it plays into that aspect of like, okay, when it comes to PvP, yeah, you're fighting somebody who is identical to you, but you have to figure out your gear switching very fast. And there's different, like, hey, you can do a 4-way switch, which is you only switching 4 items between them, or there are guys that even do up to called 8-way switching, which is you switch all of that within 0.6 of a second. And it is incredibly fast, and you have to have very precise clicks for it. Yeah. All that too, like you're switching prayers and stuff, which is kind of helping deflect or absorb damage, you know, in an aspect of that. And also casting spells in the meantime. It's just you're flipping constantly back and forth using F keys and stuff, and it's just like precise mouse clicking. And I think that's where me as a player, I kind of falter because like, oh, I can't get that clicking down that fast because I don't have the experience for it.
Sure.
But it is incredible to watch someone who's very skilled at like switching between gears so fast.
What, you don't want carpal tunnel?
No, I do not. That actually happens to a lot of people in this game.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm sure that happens for a lot of people that are just very hardcore into a lot of mouse clicky games like that. I do think I also remember you mentioning like there was a lot of newer endgame stuff that was added as of late. I may be misremembering that.
Yeah, yes and no. So with the third release of Varlamore, which is the last content release that we got, there is a couple actually fun little bosses that they added to it, and a couple quests too. You know, some of it's kind of simple stuff. They like to add little funny nods and quests and stuff into the game. But one of the bosses we added was actually a delve boss. And how that delve boss works is that you have essentially levels, and this demon insect you're fighting is burying like deeper and deeper and deeper, but each time it goes down it gets stronger and stronger. Essentially 1 through 8 levels is about, it gets very difficult. 8 is kind of like near your in-game content. You're a pretty skilled player to get to 8. And then it is actually currently still kind of going. There's still people that are going down. And it is quite impressive because you're very limited on resources. Now, with RuneScape, you're limited to a 28 item inventory, not counting what you carry on your person. And so with all that, you have to stack your healing items, you have prayer items, you have restore items, and you have to kind of like balance what you have. And with this delve boss they actually released, it is very much conserving a lot of your items for as much as you can and making sure you are perfect, or tick perfect is what we call it, because the game does run on a tick system of 100 BPM. So everything is based off that 100 BPM count. And so if you are a skilled enough player where you can master that BPM count and essentially master the tick, and you can have a metronome in your head, it gets pretty difficult with the end-game content there.
Yeah, I bet, because like the amount of like discipline that you would have to put yourself through to get that down.
Yeah, it's, and like that boss is like, we are down to, like I said, like 1 through 8. 8 is considered kind of like very end game for that, for like the levels of this delve boss. I think this morning I saw someone made it down to 108. And yeah, it's insane. Like, it is absolutely insane seeing like how far people can actually go. And there's like, we have like a scoreboard essentially outside the boss to kind of tell you, okay, the fastest 1 through 8 completion, which is like your standard completion, and the furthest somebody has gone. And that boss is always getting a little bit stronger each time it goes down.
Oh.
And so just like it's like one wrong move, you're done. Your character has died. But also it's like, it is a risk versus reward for that. So that boss has good drops with it, and obviously it being new, those drops are very volatile with their cost in game currency wise.
Yeah.
And so with that, it's like, yeah, you can risk all your loot if you want to go down one more and try to get something better. You know, it's very gambly in a sense, but if you are skilled enough, by all means.
Oh, true, but like, it's also that kind of sense of danger that doesn't exist from just a simple like death animation. You kind of have, hey, there's like an investment that I'm putting on the line here. Like, that's pretty neat.
And it's also just like, oh, I have the world record for the deepest, or I have like, and it's just like it's overall just a very aggressive content. But it's nice to see that like, hey, they're listening to what the players want, because this is the first time we've had a boss like this where you can just constantly repeat the boss and have it get a little bit harder every time.
Actually, that kind of goes into a question I was going to ask you. It's a decent segue. I was going to say, as far as like just kind of listening to the fans want sort of thing, you've been playing for a while. Maybe not as much as like everybody else, but like, hey, you've got experience. You've kind of seen some of the changes that have taken place in this game over the years, and you've gotten a feel for what's good, what's bad, this, that, and the other. If you could choose a mechanic to either shift, change, or add, what would it be?
That's really hard, because it's like, it's, as someone who plays the game, I just play it kind of passively. I really don't like, oh, I want this changed because I don't like this. It's one of the games where it's like, you can kind of like, most of the time you can learn it. You can kind of learn how to interact with content in a certain way. That actually is a very difficult question. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, because most of the game, it's like, I've played it for so long that a lot of stuff is like, I'm just gotten used to, whereas like a new player coming in, it's like, oh, well, I don't understand this, or I don't like this, I don't like how this plays, I'd like to see that change to something.
I gotcha.
But as far as like listening to players, Jagex, the parent company, really kind of knows, okay, yeah, we got to listen to how these players want to play, and actually takes a lot of what we have into account. Like, so every majority of our larger content that gets released into the game, especially like new stuff that is like brand new content overall, gets actually pulled to all the players, all the pay-to-play players. And so with that pull, it's like, it has to reach a minimum of 70% pass rate. So if like, hey, there's some content that hits that 65, 68%, it will not come into the game, because majority of players don't want it, even though majority plus is 50%.
Yeah.
And we've actually lost a good amount of content because it's like, oh, hey, like 68%, or back in the day it was 75% was the minimum threshold, so 3/4 of players, and it got like 74%, and it didn't pass because a couple people didn't want it, you know. granted, large scale things, this is thousands and thousands of players that have said, no, I don't want this in the game.
Right.
But they're very good about listening to us, and it's like, hey, they get feedback from us too. If things are way too difficult, or if this thing's not right, or whatever, it doesn't feel right, doesn't play right, they actually go in and change stuff all the time in the game. And we occasionally have we call them sweep ups. We had a large one this summer, which they've changed a lot of content overall in the game, to kind of like ease into certain things. They're like, hey, this is a little bit too difficult, we're going to make this a little bit easier. Or hey, this boss would drop this item at a higher rate, we're actually going to bring that back some, to kind of help control the actual economy internally in the game.
Okay. Yeah, that is good. And I mean, the fact that they've been keeping things going for as long as they have, I think that it speaks to their ability to manage the game well. I guess, like, maybe kind of leading off, sort of possibly towards the end of our discussion here, I guess another question I would like to pose to you. Do you have any, like, maybe favorite memories? Like, maybe, is there something that really sticks out to you as special when you're thinking back on why you enjoy the game so much? Is there something that really stands out to you about, why you love RuneScape?
Kind of hard to say, honestly, because most of what I play off of is, like, that nostalgia factor, you know? I remember doing something like this, and I would just say just the accomplishment side of things is kind of what I really do enjoy with the game.
Okay.
That being said, it's like, it's kind of very hard to say.
Yeah, and I mean, hey, so like at the end of the day, it's just like, hey, the game's just good at making you feel rewarded for your investment, or just I think even a game that's able to make you content in a passive way, like that's fine in and of itself. Even just being able to create a game that somebody's just happy to vibe in for a while, that is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, is there anything else I could talk to you about? You can edit this part out. I'm just trying to think of things. Oh, okay, we can talk about kind of pseudo lore of the game if you wish.
Sure, you know what? I would love to delve into that.
So, when and how the lore of the game is that there are some things that we have followed with RS3. So obviously back in 2007, when this save file, I guess you can say, was created, and then we started this in 2013. So in that 6-year period in between then, RuneScape 3 has gone off essentially into a different age of the game. Ages of like, hey, there are the first age and the second age, where we have a lot of equipment in the game that comes from the third age. That's extremely rare equipment, you know. Fourth age, and then we are, I think, currently in the fifth age of the game. So as far as age of like the lore behind the rest of the game is. Now, during that split between RS2 and then RS3, so that transition period, and then Old School being kind of re-brought up, it put us back into the old age that we didn't have. So there are kind of like three-ish main gods. There's more of them, and it's essentially a good, a evil, and then a balance between the two. Oh,
great, the centrist.
I know. A huge turning point in the ages of the game is that the gods have essentially created ethereal forms of themselves. And that's mostly what happens in RuneScape 3. Now in RuneScape 2, the gods aren't ethereal. We don't have gods that are walking the earth. It actually leads to some funny moments in RuneScape 3 currently, where you can do old quests that were designed during the RuneScape 2 era, where the gods just didn't exist. And then you can go walk down the street half a block, and then there's one of the gods that you were just talking about that didn't exist. You know, there's a little bit of a not really continuity there.
Yeah.
But with that, it essentially is like a timeline shift is where we are at with like Old School RuneScape versus RuneScape 3. And like there are things that didn't happen in or that are happening in old school RuneScape that never would have happened in RuneScape 3 because of a timeline shift. And that's kind of like the lore they kind of developed with it, and it kind of makes a lot of sense because like a lot of the in-game raiding content that we have does not exist in RuneScape 3, or it is a different thing in RuneScape 3 entirely. Same thing with some bosses, like they've brought over a couple bosses that they've designed for RuneScape 3, and then they've tweaked it to more of like an old school RuneScape style and how the boss interacts with it, and then ported that kind of over to old school RuneScape.
Oh, okay. So is RuneScape 3 still active?
It is.
So
RuneScape 3 is still very much active of a game, and it is RuneScape 3 walks so old school RuneScape can run. I know I may get flack if you have any RuneScape 3 people that play that game, listen to the podcast.
Sure.
We call RuneScape 3 the whales because they have a lot of money. And they're the ones that supply a lot of money to the parent company because they get the microtransactions. They get all of the microtransactions, some of the cost of the membership as well. Old school RuneScape, we are just stuck with membership costs. There are some microtransactions in a way. The only thing we really have is what we have bonds. So you can buy a bond if you're a player. You can buy a bond for $8 per se. That bond is then traded either player to player for in-game currency, but is market dictated. So like a bond is $8, sells for about 12 to 15 mil, depending on the market for the game. And so it's kind of like a microtransaction way of looking at it. Like, but you can then trade that bond in for 14 days worth of membership. So if you were like, hey, a new player getting to the game and you happen to get very lucky as like a free-to-play, skill a lot, you get some money to be able to afford a bond, and then you can redeem that, so you can buy it off another player who has spent real game money for it, redeem that yourself, and then you get 14 days of membership. So you can actually play the game, pay to play, without actually paying for the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That tracks.
So it's like, hey, if you're skilled at the game, and you can continually make more and more money in game, you can just keep buying these bonds. You can sustain your membership that way. And there's some people that actually do that because it makes more sense. Or if they are not able to like really afford the membership, it's not something it's out of their means, or if they're too young, the parents will let them use their credit card.
Yeah.
That's something you can do, is you can just grind out stuff in game to keep making money, sustaining that bond. And once you get to like in-game level amounts of currency, it's negligible,
I guess an unfavorable comparison might be how the battle pass on like Fortnite works, where you can pay for it the first time, and I would assume like a lot of other battle passes, seasons passes for other games under that probably work the same way.
I'm familiar with like Call of Duty, like in like the let's see, I would say probably the late 2020s. 2022 era or so of Call of Duty. Very similar, where it's like the new game, buy the battle pass, because when you buy the battle pass you get more from it, that you can kind of sustain that battle pass as long as you keep playing. You can kind of, I've earned enough near the end of the season where I can buy the next one for the next season, have a little bit of money where I can get like a skin or two, but you've still bought the original one, so you still played into that hand. Yeah, that's it's very, very similar, I guess, in an aspect of that.
And I mean that kind of keeps the games going. You have that loyalty to it. I mean that and word of mouth is gonna keep like ongoing games like that alive. But it's interesting to think that, like, especially if we're talking lore. So I guess you have two different like chains of history kind of running in tandem with each other.
Yeah, to an extent. Like I said, it kind of branched off, but like I said, there are certain things that do happen in both games post that break off, so it's still like a branching of a timeline of sorts. Obviously we're not going to get into like multiverse stuff or anything,
sure,
but it's definitely really interesting to see that, like, hey, they decided to go ahead and take it to the next age where the gods have returned, essentially, after what we call the God Wars, which happened in, I think, the third age of the game, as far as the lore standpoint goes. Like I said, the game does take place, I believe, in the 4th or the 5th age, and then like obviously the RS3 continues on into the 5th or the 6th age. I'm not entirely sure what age we're in. Like I said, I can probably look it up, but just as far as like understanding of how the lore is in the game.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what age we're in. You and I are in our 30s.
I know. Yeah. It's really funny because like a majority of RuneScape players are in that age range.
That makes sense, yeah.
Because a majority of us played this game like in our early kind of mid-teens, and nowadays all of us are in our 30s. Most of us work full-time jobs and stuff like that. So it's definitely interesting to see. And it also is not very interesting because when you get into like certain hub aspects of the game, or in activities where people are just sitting around AFK and they have nothing else better to do but to chat in game, it gets very, very, very political and very derogatory as well. I had to actually turn off in-game chats because people were saying some things that were making me laugh a little bit at the beginning of the podcast. So I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this off so I don't have to read all this.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you get that many people in that age group just kind of all chatting, and some words are going to be shared.
I mean, also too a little bit of immaturity,
Oh, sure.
Majority of the player base is male. I would say probably about like 65% is male players, and yeah, it's very much of a measuring contest, between everybody.
You get what you expect.
Exactly, and that's why it's like, I just mute it or I just ignore it. I'm just here to vibe and play my game.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess, actually, one thing I'm a little curious about, is there any, like, gameplay intersection between, like, is there anything gameplay-wise that would tie together in an interactive way players of both Old School and RuneScape 3, or are they, like, entirely separate from a gameplay standpoint? I mean, I'm assuming they're running off different servers.
Yeah, they're pretty much completely separate. There's no interaction between them.
Okay.
The only thing you really see as far as like bridging the two is wealth transfer between games. Like say, hey, I'm a player, I'm done playing Old School RuneScape. I don't want to play it anymore. I want to switch over to RS3. Okay, I can liquidate what I have into in-game gold, and I can find somebody who's willing to essentially take that gold from me and then trade me RS3 gold on an RS3 account. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that's the wealth transfer. People do that during our league's events as well as Deadman, in a way, where it's like there's some sort of wealth transfer that you can do in game, where it's like, hey, I can give you something or I can give you this, whatever. That does happen a little bit, but as far as like actually in-game events, there are none. Because they wanted to keep us basically completely separated from each other.
It does sort of sound like a form of rivalry has brewed between the two parties.
Yes and no. Like as a player who plays Old School RuneScape, RS3 just isn't my bread and butter. There are some people that like it. I left during a weird era. I can actually explain that era in a little bit. But I never really have like any animosity or resentment towards them at all.
Sure.
It's more of like I appreciate who they are, because if they really enjoy that game, by all means, because it kind of helps keep the lights on, keeps my game running. But yeah, when I kind of stopped playing, RuneScape was around an era called Evolution of Combat, or EOC is what we called it in game. And EOC is when it switched over from what we currently have in Old School RuneScape, which is like a point and click, to a hotbar style system like your Final Fantasy and your WoW, to where you have you have actions you can do. You got hotbars and you can map stuff to that. Mm-hmm. That's what RuneScape 3 runs mostly off of, and so that's why a lot of players are separated, because I like the old school way of doing it, where I can just do my actions and I just know, okay, I have 3 ticks after doing this attack before I can perform another attack, and my character automatically does certain things, whereas those is like very much like a hotbar, and you gotta wait for the hotbar to cool down before you can perform another action.
Yeah.
And that's like, that was a huge kind of like, some players liked it and some players didn't, and the players that didn't like it kind of just stopped playing because there really wasn't that many options back then.
Yeah. I wonder if there'll ever be a RuneScape 4.
I can't say for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do something with like newer graphics. But as far as like, okay, what would happen? Likely what ends up happening with the games is that they go through a huge revamp, and that considers the new RuneScape game. You know, so like, hey, there are players that are playing RuneScape 3 currently that have been playing since RuneScape Classic. And it's the same character, but it's just the progression has continued on. So like the character itself can be almost 30 years old, you know. 25 years I think is the current like year cape they're on, that era.
Oh, okay.
And so the account has never been deleted as long as it was actively played on, like I discussed I think early at the beginning of the podcast, where it's like if the account wasn't played on for a period of time, then the account actually did get deleted. But nowadays, if you continually played throughout that time frame, you still have your same account that you had back in the day.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's man, because I can't imagine, because I've never stayed on with a game that's gone on for that long, like with the one account or anything like that. Like, I got to imagine that is a surreal, like, special kind of gameplay experience.
Yeah, I can definitely kind of imagine. It's like if I had my old account from when I was a kid, granted, it didn't have much to it compared to what I have now in my current accounts. But if I was able to play that old account, so that would actually be really cool. I would think that'd be a really fun experience, but it is what it is at this point, you know. But if we were to see like a RuneScape 4, essentially that would just be, vision-wise, that would just be kind of like a huge graphical update with a large amount of content released. That could possibly happen. I mean, they're still developing content for that game. I'm not very familiar with their content scheduling, but we do, like when we do our summits that I was explaining earlier as well, they also get a summit as well. So it's split between old school and then regular RuneScape, and they have different development teams for each too, and they can share developers between the two games, but they usually try to keep them relatively separated.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's just like, it's the sort of thing where you would only really need to jump onto something like a RuneScape 4 if there's really if like things were starting to get dire. I would say, I hesitate to say it would be a move of desperation, but that might be what it would take to make something like that happen. I mean, otherwise, like, why? Like, would you really need it?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I actually did see the homebrew scene is always moving, and I actually remember seeing at one point, I don't know how far along it got, somebody was attempting to port like old school RuneScape to the Dreamcast. I'm not sure if they ever got that running.
I've seen a couple things. If you want to talk about homebrew stuff, I saw one not too long ago that it struck my interest a bit. It was a Game Boy era RuneScape where it's like you can play it as like a Pokemon style game, you know. And I forget, I saw a clip of it on TikTok probably a couple days ago, and I just thought it was really interesting. It's like, oh, you can hear the tunes of like, hey, like the starting areas of like Lumbridge and stuff, like some of the music stuff, they transmitted that into like an 8-bit style, and they had like a Kilo overlay, and it was like, it just looked interesting. I don't think there was really anything to that.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about like porting and stuff, there are, say something happens to RuneScape or old school RuneScape that I play in, it's like, hey, they drop it, your option is only RuneScape 4. There are people that have private servers that you can play on. Now, it's kind of you're on someone else's personal server, and there's a lot of security risks that are involved with that, and it's actually like frowned upon to currently play on them because of that. Because like if you play on both the main game, but also you play on this private server, that private server can easily, and I'm not sure about this, I'm not an IT person or anything, but like they can get into your actual account information, they can find your account information and hack your account, and as a RuneScape player, that is not a good thing when, especially if you have a decent amount of like a gold or wealth accumulated on your accounts. So it's definitely one of those things like, hey, if something were to happen to the game and it's completely offline, I can't play it anymore, that's an option. But I don't know if I would ever progress further on with like the RuneScape game, unless it proved itself worthy to me, you know?
Sure. Yeah, I guess if it did something like especially exciting, but also kind of kept the appeal of old school kind of intact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Like homebrew and stuff like that is always a ton of fun to talk about. And
Seeing it on the Dreamcast would be a lot of fun. Obviously, it would just be like a standalone like RPG element to it. There wouldn't be the MMO aspect of it. More than likely. I mean, I'm not going to say they probably couldn't do something with it, but
so it's funny. I mean, you actually still have people running servers for like Phantasy Star Online down to this day. And there are like constantly developing ways on how to keep your Dreamcast online. So it's entirely possible that somebody could make a fully functional online version of RuneScape for the Dreamcast. I would love to see that.
That definitely would be pretty interesting, I think. Just seeing, I mean, obviously graphics-wise, there's not much difference there, you know?
Yeah.
Now, I think movement would probably be the hardest thing to handle on those, because it's like RuneScape is very much like a point and click kind of game. You really don't have standard movement aspects to it or movement mechanics.
You know what You know what console has a mouse and keyboard peripheral?
Oh, I know it does. I've seen it. You showed it to me, Wayne. I know what you have. But what I'm saying is, majority of the time.
Right.
I think of Baldur's Gate for like a console versus for a PC. Baldur's Gate, popular MMO, or not MMO, popular RPG, D&D aspect to it. I really enjoyed it when it came out. And it was very much a point and click. You point, click, you went there kind of thing. And then I would see controller support for it, and the controller support was very much like, oh, you would actually just control it and move around like normal. I'm like, that actually is kind of nice. I wish I had that, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's like, because I know we spoke a little bit about the way movement works in Final Fantasy XIV, and that's a game that I think it's gained the reputation of just being one of the best MMO like controller schemes that people have seen. Like, it's actually suited very well to a controller.
I haven't played it with a controller. I've only done mouse and keyboard for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that I may keep in mind if I really want to play it. It definitely feels weird being like a mouse and keyboard mostly player when it came to like when I was playing Call of Duty and stuff.
Yeah.
And then going back to a controller, it felt kind of weird holding a controller again, you know, after playing mouse and keyboard for so long for like a first-person shooter. But yeah.
See, what we really need is we just need an extra little peripheral for consoles. And it's just a little like extendable like trackpad for a laptop.
Just an extended trackpad.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just the little trackpad, and you just use that for the authentic experience. Man. Well, I guess, were there any other topics that you wanted to hit on with this particular game?
I would say not for now. I mean, obviously, if there's anything else that more comes in the future, we can always revisit this if you want. We can even get our resident Final Fantasy XIV expert in.
Oh, true. Is she over there dying in the bed?
No, she actually, I think, went downstairs and stopped something.
Oh, okay.
She's been sweet. She's had headphones on, so she's been just kind of just vibing in the corner.
Oh, sure. Yeah, honestly, 14 would be fun to talk about, but I think I may prefer to get a little further in that game before that, you know.
Of course, yeah. Like I said, I've delved very little into it. I think maybe max about 20, 30 hours into the game. Not being a huge like Final Fantasy guy anyway, it's like I've recently just started getting into it.
Yeah.
As far as like the 7 goes. Final Fantasy 7, Rebirth, and Remake. Not in that order.
Yeah, and then we'll see whenever the third one comes out in like 5 years.
I swear, I'm telling you, it's gonna be a reunion. I don't care what they did with Crisis Core. It's gonna be called Reunion.
You may be right. I think that subtitle, like used or not, it might still be strong enough and relevant enough to still stick, but we'll have to see. But I guess until then, normally I ask people to plug themselves, but I guess you're not doing a lot of content online, are you?
I'm not active anywhere online. I have my own personal social medias, but even those I barely ever use. Mostly I'm a lurker majority of the time when it comes to certain content. I'm not one out here like really talking about myself at all. But I do enjoy chatting every once in a while.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, I really don't have any plugs. If anything, just keep following Wayne as boss. I'd appreciate that. It helps him pay the bills.
It does help me pay the bills. This is the guy who I give rent to every month, and who makes my dinner like once a week. We actually just had meatloaf like a couple hours ago.
Meatloaf and mashed potatoes, and it was a struggle meal. It was easy.
It was good.
Simple. Good. I'm glad you enjoy it.
It was a good cook.
Yeah, I guess you can call me his landlord if you wanted to.
Yeah, something like that. Well, thank you so much for hopping on for this today. I certainly enjoyed the discussion, and I hope that people definitely enjoyed tuning in to this special little episode of the podcast as well.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I guess until next time, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next mission.